Now to an extremely emotional day in court for families of the victims of the Oxford school shooting.
Yeah, it's George Donnini. He's a criminal defense attorney with Butzel. He's here to help give us some context and insight. George, thanks so much for being with us. Can you just tell us your thoughts on what we saw today, in particular, hearing from the shooter himself for the first time? I think that was probably the most surprising thing that came out of this.
I think that's right. I was actually interviewed yesterday by one of your colleagues, and he asked me to predict whether I thought he would say anything, and I said no, I didn't think so, but he did.
Surprisingly,
he addressed the court.
Yeah, that did come as a surprise. Are you surprised that the judge delivered a life sentence in the case?
You know, I'm not surprised, given the facts and circumstances of this case and the terrorism charges and the multiple counts. I think the only chance that he had for not getting that was by pleading guilty to all these offenses. But ultimately, I think the evidence was too overwhelming.
Yeah, the shooter, his attorneys tried arguing that he was mentally ill, but that just didn't seem to fly with the judge in this case. And when you heard the statements from the victims and victim survivors and the judges describing him as a terrorist, what's your perspective there? Just didn't seem to fly for him.
Yeah, I think really what swayed the judge, obviously this is awful. I've got kids myself, or high school kids, college kids, so, my heart goes out to the families. But yes, ultimately, I think those things predominated. And, he mentioned it, the judge mentioned it, the notes in the journal, the pre-planning, all these things, steps along the way where he could have stopped. And I think, with all of those things that happened, it was just obviously the ultimate sentence from this judge.
Yeah.
George, it sounded like the judge was also very measured in this situation, where he talked about sentencing is supposed to rehabilitate and deter. And based on him saying that he also read 36 hours worth of testimony and letters, I guess he thought it was in the public's best interest to give a life sentence and to not let him back out into the public. Can't have any conversation or any interaction with the public or anyone at Oxford or the victims in this case.
Yeah. I guess one thing I would say about the process, I think the judge did a great job, and frankly, I thought the lawyers for both sides did a great job. And that's what our system of justice requires, that both sides have zealous advocates, and then you have the neutral judge who makes the ultimate decision and weighs all of the evidence. And he clearly did that. He clearly read the materials in advance. He was prepared. He listened today. He listened during the 4 days of the Miller hearing. And he came to the conclusion he came to.
Yeah. What's next? Do you think he will appeal?
I'm sure he'll appeal because, there's no downside to appealing. It can't get worse for him. But whether there's any success on appeal, the standard is very high. I mean, again, they went through it in the Miller hearing, where you kind of have to be, we'll call it the worst of the worst, and I think he found it to be here.
Yeah. George Donnini, thank you so much for your time and perspective coming in here talking to us today. Appreciate it.